Evening, everyone, and welcome to our New South Wales General Meeting. If you can please take a seat, we might get started. Once I work out how the slideshow works. Hell, this is ridiculous. Let's get that sorted. Okay, thanks everyone. Welcome once again. I am just really struggling with this slideshow, as you can see. This is ridiculous. Okay. So I'd just like to recognise the traditional owners as we start on the land that we work, live and meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And also acknowledge our affiliates and how they help the HCAA do what it does, along with our corporate members as well. And of course, all our members, thank you very much. So tonight's meeting, this is really quite tough to read when my screen's not working down here. But as you can see, this is what we'll be running through. So we've got a few hot topics. Some drainage from Russell and Rowan from Dam Busters. We'll be looking at some different soil classifications and the like from Jason. Geotech. Nick is going to touch on a bit of a topic for gas, and Brendan's going to give us a little bit of an update on some of the cool work that he's been up to in the water reporting study. So the committee report, it was on my screen and I can't get access to it. So please feel free to ask Paul Angus and we'll probably circulate that a little bit later on. So there's been plenty of industry engagement going on at the moment. There's a good bit of new legislation potentially out there in the wings as well. So keep an eye out for our communications on LinkedIn there. These are some of the ones that we've put out there of recent. So our current bank account is 210,000, so looking reasonably healthy. So these are our CPD sessions at the moment. So they've been very, very popular, especially on the online forums. So this is what's coming up. So feel free to come along and also invite your colleagues along as well. So there's a group being put together by a quantity surveyor to assist with recognition that scope is not necessarily scope and somebody's deliverable is not necessarily equal to the other deliverables. So this is sort of driven by the person in the middle there who's a quantity surveyor, who's had a few instances where they've lost projects for overpricing and also over delivering on their scope during the price. So Paul from the HCAA has joined that group to assist in developing some industry non-mandatory guidelines as to what scope should look like for different phases, the degree of completeness that schematic design should be over the total project and the like, to sort of align the industry. So if you have any comments, please feel free to pass them on through Paul, and it'll be brought up in this working group. So there's a watershedding group at the moment, which is putting together some design guidance on behalf of the HCAA to be referenced in an Australian technical standard published by Standards Australia, which is quite great, which is a great opportunity for the HCAA. So I'd just like to thank everybody who's involved in that group. So I think we'll just give them a big round of applause. So a bit of sad news. Unfortunately, Chris lost his battle with cancer just of recent. So we're just, those who knew Chris and don't know Chris, it's very sad news, obviously. So we give him our best regards to his family and loved ones. So yeah, construction rocks. This was Construction Rocks, I think was last Thursday night or something like that, held on Oxford Street, where people from the construction industry who played music came and jammed, and other people from the construction, building and property industry came and watched. So pretty cool event. So next time it's on, do look out for it and come along. This is one of our fellow hydraulic consultants here, which some of you might know, playing away on stage. So the sleep out, Paul from the HCAA is undertaking the sleep out for this Thursday, actually. So he's got some sponsoring that still has some holes to fill. So if anybody would like to sponsor him, you'll probably see him spruiking LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever other public forum he can actually get onto to drum up some sponsorship. Great cause. So I think some of the funding here will go to the development that they're doing in Surrey Hills, where they're building a 4-story high-rise building for the vulnerable kids and things like that to house. So quite a good initiative there. So we're lucky enough to have Brendan tonight, sitting up the front next to Nick, who will just run us through some of his updates and some of the data that he's been assessing and some of the ways forward. So just check. So I think we should welcome Brendan up before I jump through his slides.
Sorry, it's damn hard because there's no prompts. So
that's all right. Most of it.
Just use that.
Yeah. No worries. Well, thanks very much for having me up here. And it's good to actually see people face to face. It's been probably 3 years, I think, since 2019, since we started the project. This is the first time face to face. So thanks very much for having me up here. And again, just a big thanks to the association. Without their support, I wouldn't be able to further my research or my career path or anything like that. So as a researcher, I'm very blessed that all this access to all this good data. So hopefully I can, repay it forward and give the industry the tools to be able to improve hydraulic design. So I'll just run through a quick update of where we're going with the research and what the future looks like as well. So for those that don't know, it's a 3-year research project or PhD project, industry-based and supported by the association. It started in July 2021 last year, so it's just ticked over into its 2nd year. Stage 1 is associated to quantifying the overestimation associated to AS35 or AS/NZS 3500 Part 1. So that's now been complete, and we've got some good results for that moving forward now. Stage 2, which is currently in progress, is developing a new formula or updated and improved methods to estimate peak flows for cold water in residential buildings. And that's nearing completion now. And then stage 3, we're looking at doing a systematic review to ensure that we don't have any sort of unintended consequences of reducing the pipe size within the hydraulic systems. And that'll sort of encompass a whole systems approach from embodied energy, water quality, velocities, etc. So just a recap of stage 1 for those that haven't seen the results yet. So we've monitored the water demand for probably over a year now in 4 buildings, 3 primarily residential and another one as a mixed use, commercial and residential. the results are pretty evident, as most of you probably already knew or suspected. But yeah, we've been able to quantify that the Australian standard sort of overestimates between 2 to 3 times the actual flows experienced in the buildings during peak periods of water consumption. We also did a few case studies looking at other or comparable international codes or methods for pipe sizing. We found that the DIN standard and the newly developed IAPMO water demand calculator were probably the most accurate. However, they tend to sort of underestimate the peak flows. So from our perspective, that may not be a good thing, especially when we're going down to smaller pipe sizes. A small change in demand can probably have a big change in head loss. So sort of I guess a caution when adopting different plumbing codes. So just a review of the publications. It seems like a long time now, but we've actually got some really good publications across a number of mediums now. So the first one to sort of come out was the ABCB Student Scholarship Report. And that sort of summarized the water demand data and then did some hydraulic modeling as well, comparing an as-size system and then an improved size system, sort of just shedding some light on what the changes might be in the hydraulic conditions. In addition to that, we also submitted a paper to Oz Water Conference in 2022. The actual paper, although it wasn't successful, was nominated in the top 12 papers for the conference. We also have done an Australian Water Association interview based on our work to try and shed some more light. So that there's probably more of a cross between the civil side and the building services side, now starting to recognise that the systems are intertwined. Just last week, a really big milestone from me perspective for my PhD studies is the first peer-reviewed article was published in the ASC Journal of I think it's Water Resources and Planning Management, and that's a Q1 or a pretty high-end journal in the US. The paper is also open access, so anyone can actually access. You don't have to pay, there's no paywall for it. And then to sort of coincide with that peer review, we've done a SparkNotes version where we've published an article in The Conversation, and it's essentially summarising the research to date and the impacts and the research needed moving forward. So moving on to what our current research activities entail. So we've just started heated water monitoring, just locally here at the Milsons Point building. We're also doing some pressure monitoring. This is inside single dwellings or apartments. And then also in the background, we're developing a HCAA PSFR calculator for industry to use and estimate cold water flows in residential buildings. So just to give you a quick overview, as I said, this only since last week, the monitoring's begun. So we're monitoring in this one building. How hot water is consumed in conjunction with cold water, and hopefully we can spread this across more buildings later on. In a similar fashion, so we've got in my own house at the moment, a pressure transducer and then a water use log. So basically going through just to try and understand how each fixture within a normal household behaves from a water hammer or transient event. There's some interesting findings already. Sort of successive events can raise the static pressure within the building. And then sort of we have sort of quick spikes. Now, the charts there sort of in the colors, they show an hour of pressure monitoring. across in my house, and you can see those spikes every now and then. They are a water hammer event associated with just a mixer or a washing machine or anything like that. So you can see that the water hammer is quite significant inside an apartment or inside just a normal single dwelling. I've just recently moved into a 6-unit block, 2 stories, and the pressure profile is a little bit scary. So I've left that off the chart at the moment. So, but it got up to about 14 bar or 1400 kPa. So I think there's something going on with the heated water system. Yeah. And then probably the one that everyone's sort of more interested and keen to see. So in the coming weeks, we're hoping to be able to release a beta version of a spreadsheet for the association to be able to use and trial and do a comparison between other pipe sizing methods. So we've adopted similar formulas to the IAPMO water demand calculator. However, we've actually developed the p-values or the probability of fixture use. It's derived from Australian water use data. And we've also got a few little tweaks to the implementation. So the p-values will be a function of both building occupancy and the size or number of apartments at the same time. Because we found that the p-value for a fixture, it's not a linear or a static value, and it changes depending on the size of the building. And then just to sort of give you some a bit of an insight to sort of how it's performing at the moment. So we've completed a benchmark study. Here we've just sort of selected a few different pipe sizing methods. So the red line there on the left chart is NZS 3500. The blue line is the newly developed method that we've got in the works at the moment. And then there's a few others sort of at the bottom there with the DIN and the IAPMO water demand calculator. So you can see that they're very similar, but the IAPMO and DIN sort of struggled at larger building sizes and tend to sort of underestimate at around about 50%. So as a general rule, it's around about sort of, I think is it, 25 to 33% of current flows estimated by AS 3500 part 1. And then we've also conducted a case study of the 4 buildings and sized appropriately for the cold water there. And we're getting some pretty good results with a small degree of overestimation between 7 and I think 36%. So at the moment, results are looking pretty promising, but we need to validate this further with monitoring more buildings and more water use data. So it's sort of the call for industry to sort of, if anyone knows of anyone or knows of any projects that might be interested in installing a water meter on there. I know Tom's been doing some initiative with the green buildings to try and get some innovation points and get water meters on buildings that way. So the more data, the better from our perspective, and that's how we learn. So that's it from me. Is there a quick time for questions, or if not, you can come and find me afterwards and we can have a chat. But
before people ask questions, I'll just touch on. So
yep.
Just to give everyone a little bit more detail. So the new hot water meter is one we talked about earlier this year, late last year. So it costs about $8,000. The association paid for it. So it's the same German branded water meter that we put on the cold water, but the cold water meters are about $4,000 per building. So the new meter, the old meters would do 5-second data, where the new hot water meter, which we did put on the cold next to the older water meter to compare the data. These are all stuff Brendan didn't touch on, but it will do 10 readings per second. So it's much more accurate. And what we want to do is have a look at if we do future monitoring of buildings, do we want to spend $3,000 on a water meter or $8,000? Is it worth paying the extra money? Also, the accuracy of monitoring at millisecond data. So that hot water meter, it filled up the memory bank, which is quite large, on it in 2 days, because we were doing sort of millisecond data basically. And now we're going to drop it back to 5 seconds so that it can last 14 days instead of somebody having to go and download it every 2 days. But yeah, so Brendan, everyone probably heard over the last few years, but basically we're sponsoring his PhD. We're paying half of the cost with Deacon, so that's $33,000 a year to give everyone a bit of insight into what we're doing. And then Tom's had a chat with the Green Building Council. So with the calculator Brendan just showed, what we would like to do is the Green Council have agreed we can get innovation points, one innovation point. So you could swap a rainwater tank on a block of units for a water meter and actually save a client money potentially. And that water meter would hook up to this cloud. And then you would then fill out the Excel sheet that Brendan's prepared to calculate the estimated flows. And then we'll use that to further validate the basically the calculator to prove that it's accurate. So any blocks of units that are coming up, keep it in mind and give myself or Tom or anyone you think might give you an answer a call, because we're keen to put water meters in and it could add value to your client and then adds value to this project. So I'll let Brendan, you can ask him any questions now, but keep that in mind for any apartments you're doing.
Thanks, Brendan. That was a really good presentation. I think we should all give Brendan a massive round of applause for what he said. Questions? Who'd like to go first? Don't all rush at the same time. Right.
Hey, Brendan, thanks for that. That was awesome. Maybe not so much of a question, but more of a reminder for the group. We talked last meeting up that we are in the city. We do need more sites.
Yep.
From memory, I think we wanted sort of 2 sites around that 100 unit mark, so a little bit smaller than what we're currently studying.
Yep.
And then 2 more sites that were 250 plus.
Yep. Yeah. Sort of. Yeah. Trying to fill in the gaps of what we've already got. So we're around that 120, 150 mark, and then 330. So yeah, anything in between that. And I'm even trying to sort of go on the smaller end of the scale too. So it might even be 6, 10. Because yeah, they can change quite a lot as well. Just based on what we've been looking, the water use is pretty erratic under sort of 20 apartments, and then it starts to synchronize at that 15 to 20 apartment level and becomes a bit more predictable. So yeah, any building is not going to be scoffed at. Data is gold from my perspective.
So all have projects that were finished in 2021, 2022, ideally pretty well occupied. Ideally, what, 80% plus?
Yeah, as long as we know what the occupancy is, then we can look at, okay, if it's 80% and we know it's 200, then we can work out, okay, this is probably going to be more reflective of 160. So yeah, if we know what the occupancy level is and we can bring that back, that's fine as well.
So if you do have one,
all over. Yep.
doesn't matter.
Yep.
Any state.
Yep. Yep.
If you do have any of those, Mitch McLennan, I don't know if Mitch is here. He's put his hand up to sort of help.
Yep.
Women and be a bit of a liaison with HCAA, so contact Mitch or all, I guess.
With the Green Star stuff, if there's no other questions, or you can ask them later. Okay, what was the online question? I'll run over and read it out.
So the online question is, will hospitals and other large-scale commercial buildings be measured as sites?
So I think that's always in the grand plan. The idea is to, I guess, knuckle down the process or the methodology with the residential stuff. And then the intention is it's just then a copy paste approach from a methodology perspective. So yeah, I think that's always been part of the grand plan, is to put that to other building types. But yeah, the focus at the moment is residential, so we're not biting off too much. And then yeah, once the process and the methodology is established and we know that is a good foundation, then yeah, I think there's definitely a push for other building types to go forward.
And process, sure.
There's one back there too.
And then the process with the GVC, the idea there was to start gathering or start installing meters and obtaining green star points for that. And that can be done through an alternate innovation pathway, with the intent that when meters seem to be going in and there's actually a benefit to the market, the GBC then might actually adopt it as a tick the box point. So it'd be a good opportunity, as Nick suggested, to sort of innovate and maybe even do some value management in relation to rainwater, which might not see such good returns in embodied energy and things like that. Just out of interest, we did a bit of a rough embodied energy saving calc based on some of Brandon's work thus far, and a very, very crude one as well. But the overall energy saving providing was 64% of the embodied energy. So any ESD consultant would be pretty impressed with that. And so that's the diminishment of the copper size, means that less stuff's dug out of the ground, means that less copper is transported from the mine to the processing plant and to then to the site in the end. And then when it came to the domestic hot water, the overall saving between dropping the pipe diameters and reducing heat losses was 36% in the system. So once again, that's aligned to water energy saving. So all of these are pretty impressive figures that could quite easily shape up an innovation to either A, get a meter on your project and get a green star point, or get a meter on your project and use some of the data to then further innovate and reduce your pipe sizes. So I'll go and answer some questions around.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, I really applaud the work that you're doing and the monitoring. And having had a little experience with major buildings on these sorts of issues with peak flows and the response of pipe work to peak flows and shocks, I question, and I'd like you to answer if you would, the value of reducing your recording intervals back to 5 seconds. And is this driven by a few $1,000s extra or less for a meter, or is it justifiable in your cognitive considerations?
So we're still probably exploring the depth of, I guess, the value you get at logging at a higher frequency. So we can sort of see even just between 5 seconds and a minute, that there's about a 20% variance in the peak flows that are observed. So, and that's because fixture use is so erratic, and a lot of fixtures are used over a short period of time. So that short burst, I guess quantifying that and how much impact that has in a real world perspective as far as if you turn another tap on really quickly, does that impact the pressure in the building? So that's going to be sort of, I guess, having the data there in the background will help support future work and sort of quantifying, I guess, what an allowable or the best sort of practice is from that perspective. From a research perspective, it seems like 5 to 10 seconds is sort of the rule of thumb, and anything outside of that has to be sort of corrected or allowed for. So that's why we've at the moment gone to 5 seconds, just to be in line with other researchers. So that way we're not questioned so much from that perspective. So hopefully that's answered some of your question or raised more questions probably, but
yeah, a bit of that. Yeah, so that's fine.
Yep.
Is there a way of increasing the memory on these things so you don't have to come and download that data every 2 days, or if you reduce to say 2 or 3 seconds?
So at the moment, for example, the 4 cold water buildings, they're logged at a minute at the moment, and they're logged directly to a cloud. So that's an infinite process from our perspective. You can log in and go back 2 years and grab the data from that. However, if you want to go under that resolution, then you have to go to different systems or a different flow rate meter. And then obviously if you're adding additional channels, it's all extra data. So at the moment, our way to sort of, instead of someone going to site to download, we're logging directly into a VPN, so I can do it from my computer at home. So there's no real, I guess, outlay for me. I just log in every 14 days and I'm just set an alarm, basically log in, grab this data, And then we can just, yeah, if we don't do it, we just miss maybe a couple of days of data, which probably isn't the end all be all, but that's sort of where it's at the moment.
Do you know the hot peak versus the cold peak?
No, I haven't looked at that yet.
Okay, I've got a text messages then, so I'll reveal it to you.
Yep. What is that? From Brent, was it?
Yeah, I
Yep.
asked Brent because I didn't know if you had that chance to look at it yet.
Yep.
But so peak water was 1.4 liters a second at 11:45 a.m. and peak hot water was 0.72, so pretty much exactly half at 7:36 a.m.
Yep.
So an earlier peak and at half, but
Yep. And then
it's
there's
very early days, but just for anyone
Yep.
that's interested.
and then I think the return runs at about 0.2. So the system's probably always operating at that sort of that 0.2.
And then what was the temperature drop you had before? That was 5 degrees.
Yeah, it looks like it's sort of operating in that 5-degree range. So it looks like that system's behaving as it's sort of designed. So which is a good sign. But yeah, so early days from the hot water, but yeah, hopefully we'll have some results soon.
Any more questions from the group, or should we give Brendan a massive round of applause? And, thank you, Brendan.
All right, thanks for having me here.
Okay, the slides haven't got any better. Nick, you're up next. Nick's going to run us through the changes to 5601 and or some of the updates that the industry might see in the future as well. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. I'll keep this fairly short. Everyone got an email. I put the 10 most sort of prominent changes for consultants in an email a few weeks back. To remind everyone, we now are unified across Australia. I believe we are, as far as soon as the new gas standard is published, which the new standard was published about 4 weeks ago, it's automatically adopted in every state of Australia now. New South Wales were previously the only state that we still had to call it up in state legislation, and we'd use older versions, but now we're all using the latest version. So if you're designing or if you're talking to a plumber, they've got 6 months to choose whether to use 2022 or keep using 2015, I think it is, if I got the day right, or year right. So yeah, there's a 6-month transition period where you can choose which standard you want to use. So I didn't actually do a slide. I just run through a couple of key ones. So a big change is, so the inclusion, so if you're using PEX pipe on a project, you now have to use gas safety shutoff devices. If it's class 1 or there's discussions about class 1A, so there's an UPSO device. I might have mentioned this once before. So it might sound like I've got an impediment because everyone's used to OPSOs, but this is an UPSO, which is an under pressure shutoff, not over pressure. So when the idea is when a PEX pipe melts, there's a lot of pressure released. The UPSO detects that the pressure suddenly dropped in the system and then shuts off the gas to the building. I understand they're around about $150 to install, and that would go at the gas meter. And that would just be for a residential home using PEX pipe. On in any other class of building, they're saying a full gas safety shutoff system, which is $3,500 or thereabouts, I think, these days. The trick with all of that is you also have to have it integrated to your smoke detectors. So you would have to discuss with the electrical engineer, making sure if there's no FIP and it's a block of townhouses, that the smoke detector is actually capable of tripping the gas. So that's, we'll see what happens. If anyone has any issues, let me know and I can pass it on to the gas committee. And there's discussions about easing up that, because one of the questions I raised on the committee was if someone burns their toast in townhouse number 4 every morning and you're in townhouse number 2 and the gas keeps tripping, you're gonna have some pretty upset townhouse customers because their gas trips every morning because someone burns their toast. So that's a little bit of one that it has science behind it. They've in the UK, they've done a lot of testing on PEX pipe. They showed us photos on the committee, and basically when there's a fire, the fittings pop off, the aluminium crimp on the a lot of the gas PEX pipes without naming brands, but the aluminium crimp just pops off when it's under a certain amount of heat, and then the gas just blasts out of the end of the pipe, versus a copper pipe takes a lot longer before it will actually start leaking. So that's why they've just identified there's a higher risk with PEX pipe than with metallic pipe. You need to install a reversion fitting, although I understand this has already been in previous editions of the gas standard. So reversion fitting, if you're going to put PEX pipe in and you're going to then install a different brand of PEX pipe, or you have copper and you want to put PEX in, you have to put a section of pipe in where a plumber can come back to adapt to change over. So it's a little bit of copper, 300 or 400 mil long, that's meant to sit in the building, but I don't think many of us inspect class 1 buildings, but if you do, that's something to look for. And I think Fair Trading put out a notice on that. They're starting to look for that as well. So location of appliances, you're no longer allowed to put an appliance within 1.5 meters of the edge of a building. So this is about safety, and you can't put an appliance more than 2.5 meters above ground level. So this is for single residential premises, and it's to stop those townhouses that are 3 stories high and they've got the instantaneous gas heater up 4 meters off the ground and the plumber can never service it. So they've just introduced rules around that to try and protect plumbers. Isolation valves in educational institutions, I think everyone's been doing that anyway, but it has now been added to the standard. So you have to have your safety shut-off valve yeah, solenoid, like the full gas safety shut-off system in all education facilities now. And then another one's effective altitude on high-rise installations. So it's something I think people have discussed for a long time, but it's now in the standard. It doesn't have a huge effect. So I did a quick calc on it, and it adds about half a kPa for every 100-meter rise in a building. So 2.75 kPa down the bottom, it'll be 3.25 kPa by the time it reaches the 100th floor. And then if it's LPG, it will be the other way because it's heavier than air. But it doesn't have a huge effect unless you're working on really big jobs, which I live in Port Macquarie now, so it would never affect me. But the Sydney consultants will. And then the other one, they've changed the tables around again. So they've kind of pulled them back a bit. The last standard, they increased the pipe sizes considerably, and this one, they've pulled them back a little bit. So it's a bit in between. There were some complaints that they went a little bit too conservative with the last standard. So they've pulled the pipe sizes down a little bit and changed the tables around. So unless anyone has any questions, hopefully that's a bit of a quick rundown for you on the new standard. So you've got until April to keep using the old one, or May, March or April, I can't remember. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That was really great. When it comes to states, doesn't it also apply to the territories?
Yeah. Oh, well, don't we have someone from the territory? Oh, not the territory, what is it? From Canberra here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a territory. Yeah,
One of them. Rod, I was wondering if you might have anything to quickly mention. Welcome, Rod.
So there's no slide. There's no slide.
There might be. No.
No. Okay, cool. That's all I need. Look, to give an update. Look, firstly, I'd like to welcome Andrew Nankaro, he's my co-teacher that's currently teaching the diploma. He's keeping me in line, and he's been there for a lot longer than I have and teaching me exactly how to do things. And it's been awesome so far, and I'm glad he can come and join us tonight just to see what we do. But look, some bad news, I guess, since we've been here last, is that we did have a third teacher, Nunzio Rosso. He's decided to resign and come back into the consulting fold, which is good for him. I guess he's keen to just do more of that than the teaching. Downside for Andrew and I is that out of the 34 students we now have, we've got more load individually. Now, look, we're both prepared to do that. That's fine. And I just echo what about the last 6 or so meetings that we've had where I'm sort of asking you that we need teachers. Anyone remotely interested in teaching, come and have a chat. Please do it. All right. Back to Kaiser. Someone write that down in the minutes, please. Look, I must say, I have had a few people come and contact me, and it is pleasing to see that a few people are thinking about it. You do need to do that HCAA course. It's a 12-month course. Typically, you can get it done faster if you want to do an intensive block. But yeah, look, everyone's well aware that we have this big waiting list, right? We just can't teach either the Cert 4 or the diploma. The Cert 4 is a prerequisite for the diploma. We can't teach that where we're going to teach it this semester. We couldn't because there were no teachers. We've got the material there now after 3 years of effort, and we've got the diploma material there. Now we need people to teach it. So the waiting list is somewhere around probably high 190s or 200. It's going to sit there. So Andrew and I, we won't finish this current cohort till mid 2024. Ideally, we want to start a group of Cert 4 students, which is probably only 15 starting next year. That's an 18-month process. So if you do the maths, we've got 190 waiting for it, and we're kicking over 15 or 30 a year, or every 2 years. We need teachers. And then we can, if we have teachers, we can run multiple cohorts side by side. All right, so that's the first one. The other thing I want to ask is, I do need more help. I'm just finding this current role with HCAA is a bit too much for me personally, only because of the hours that I'm doing, still helping writing course material for the diploma. We've got about, I think, 4 units left to go, 3 fire units, and I think there's hot water's kind of almost there, but so still doing a little bit of that on the side. And I just am feeling I need to focus more on the students at this point. So I want to kind of step back from this role of chatting to you guys. And the other part of it is once a fortnight meeting with TAFE and talking about the progress of that writing stuff, the implementation of it, what are the changes to training packages, you know, those sorts of things that aren't the face-to-face teaching, but helping to keep that rolling in the background and make sure that anything new is adopted. So what I'm hoping is that I'm keen to, or committed to the students to get those guys educated, guys and girls. If I could get some help from anyone in this room or any of our members, it is a 1-hour meeting once a fortnight. There's probably 3 or 4 emails per week from interested students who want to do the diploma. And it's just an email back to them saying, look, if you want to get on the waiting list, here's how you get there. Send them an email, that's it. They're little things, I know, but it does take some time, and I'm keen to focus on the students we've currently got. So if anyone is keen to maybe put the education manager hat on, I'm thinking 12 months, and hopefully by then I'll have my life organised with all aspects of it. I don't say that in the sense that I'm just going to back out. It's just I'll be on the sidelines. I just need someone to help out with that stuff. So if anyone's kind of keen to put their hand up for a position on the committee and help out with some of that stuff, that'd be awesome. So if you can, give me a call, email me, whatever. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. That's a really good cause. And thanks for all the hard work as well. Okay, now for some crazy photos. I probably don't need to look at these. They probably speak for themselves. It's quite a good one, this one. That actually might be better. That's sort of reheat on a rad system there. some interesting fire stopping. That's pretty usual. Some decent P trapping there, or S trapping. I'm not sure what's going on there. I know that one. I tried to delete most of these photos out of tonight's presentation that Paul put together for me to present on his way, so I obviously missed this one. The story behind the moustache is we had to go to a function this weekend and my partner told me to shave my beard. And of course, she didn't mention moustache, so I was being a smart ass and thought I'd keep it. And have only got back from Melbourne today, so I haven't got rid of it yet. So yeah, Paul being Paul, he's nabbed a photo of me, and this will be circulated around different means for a while, I presume. Right. Em, welcome to the stage. Can't help it all.
No, I'm good, I think. Hi, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the affiliates in the room. Last year, or end of last year, we introduced the Inner Spotlight platform for you guys. It's a really great way for you to promote anything that you're doing, any products, any services, any news that you've got to all of our members. Even if you've got a new member of staff, you've got a new web platform or anything like that. So next year, we'd really like to kick that off a little bit more. You guys, there's a lot of you in the room. So if you would like the opportunity to get in front of our members, then please drop me a message and let me know. I feel like likewise for members in the room as well, if there's anything that, if there's a topic that one of the affiliates has that's new, or a service, or anything that you want to know more information about, then yeah, drop me a message as well, and we can hopefully get that affiliate to do in the Spotlight feature. It goes out to all of our members, and it also goes up on our LinkedIn page as well, which I believe, what did you say, how many people on there the other day?
Yeah, I'm not
700 and something another.
300 and something.
Okay, I would say I just really exaggerated that.
That's our members. But
Yes.
LinkedIn is 780.
Yeah, so our LinkedIn platform has a lot more people on it than actual members, but you get to reach out to them as well. So it was just a bit of a, this is here, it's available, and it would be great to hear from you guys and make some more use of it. All right, cool. Now I believe I have another slide as well. Okay, so because we are celebrating 2022 this evening, we've got a fair few prizes from some of our affiliates, which we will be doing a little bit of a draw for as the night goes on. So we'll do that in between speakers. But one of the ones that we've got is Steve, who can't be here tonight, but he did give us a prize draw of a barbecue, a portable barbecue worth $400. Alrighty, so super generous, amazing timing because obviously it's summertime. And I want to say everyone in the room can win it, but you kind of can't, because the only clause that Steve put on it was that an affiliate can't win it. Alrighty, so if you're an affiliate member, I'm really sorry, but you can blame Steve, not me. Alrighty, so we're going to play a little game. So everybody's going to go on the feet. So the winner of the game is going to win the $400 barbecue, okay? Which Steve will either arrange to get delivered, or you can pick it up or something else. We're going to play a game called Heads and Tails. So everybody needs to stand up, find a little bit of space, please, and I'm going to explain how it goes. And Tom, I need your help.
Yeah, sure.
On here, how do I see the notes that go
Yes,
with
I
the
got
Heads
them
and
up on
Tails
your
thing?
computer.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Alrighty. So if you're an affiliate, you need to stay in your seat. I'm sorry. Alrighty. So what is going to happen is I am going to just pop on. Thank you. I'm going to read out some statements, okay? And they are going to be true or they're going to be false. Now, if you think the answer is true, so you're going to get 5 seconds to decide your answer in your head. Don't talk amongst yourselves, just your own answers, okay? If you think it's true, you're going to put your hands on your head, okay? If you think it's false, you're going to have your hands as a tail, alrighty?
Can you team up with an affiliate?
No, I don't know, maybe. I'll leave that up to you. So, as long as it's your own bum, it can be any hand you like, okay? No one else's bum's involved. All right, so if you get the answer wrong, you have to sit down. Now, I've got 20 questions, so if we go beyond that, then I don't know who's going to win, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so cracking your knuckles too much gives you arthritis. If you think it's true, put your hands up here. If you think it's false, put your hands on your bum. Okay, anyone with their hands on their head, you need to sit down because it's false. All right. Okay, I'm going to try and speed it up because I know we've got a lot to fit in tonight. Okay. The can opener was not invented until 45 years after the can. True, put your hands on your head. False, have a tail. Nick, Brendan, where you can be? I saw you looking around the room, copycat. Okay, if you've got your hands as a tail, then you need to sit down. That's true. Ooh, alrighty. Oh, I like this one. Okay, a cockroach can live for 9 days without its head before it starves to death. True or false? True or false? Oh, it's true. So if you thought false, sit down. How gross is that, by the way? Like, ugh. So don't chop the heads off cockroaches because they're still going to run around your house. Okay. In the English language, there is no word that rhymes with orange. True or false? So there's no word that rhymes with orange. Everyone's going to go through every letter now, aren't they? Alrighty. If you said false, you need to sit down because it's true. Orange. Really? There's no word that rhymes with orange. Porridge. Porridge, orange, porridge, orange. No. Doesn't have a nut in it. Alrighty. The black box in a plane is black. True or false? It's false. It's orange. Oh, so we've only got, we've got two men down. We've got Paul and we've got Rod. Okay, okay. Oh, I like this. Okay. Hot and cold water sound the same when poured. True or false? It's false. You're both right. Okay. Oh, we've got someone else over there. Sorry. My glasses are for short distance, not long. All right, hang on. So it was false. You all had tails, didn't you? You're all good. All right. The unicorn is the national animal of Scotland. True or false? Well, I don't know what happens now because it's true and you've all got your hands on your bum. So let's go another question. But apparently it's true. Who knew? All righty. Another one. Stay standing. Australia is wider than the moon. True or false? It's true. Paul, sit down. It's true. Okay, we've got two still in the game. Okay. The 5 rings on the Olympic flag are interlocking. True or false? It's true. Oh my God, you two are really good. If I ever go do like trivia, I'm going to be like, do you want to go? Okay. Thomas Edison discovered gravity. True or false? Oh gosh, you're really good. It is false. It was Isaac Newton. Okay. Every day, more money is printed for Monopoly than the US Treasury. True or false? It's false. Rod, you're out of the game. Yay! We have a winner. Come on, come on, come on. Awesome. All right, only because I need to see your name. All right, Adam, well done. So, come on up.
Yeah, I'd like to thank barbecues and shrimps.
Amazing.
so
Well,
much.
you're going to enjoy them. So, yes.
Yes,
I will pass your details to Steve and he will arrange.
he's going to
the
laugh.
rest for you.
Yes. all
I
right.
like that. Alrighty. I think that's me done. Yes, that's me done. Thank you for playing, guys.
Thanks, Sam. That was great. On that note, we'll have a short break. Good one. Okay. What's to fix this thing? Fucking Thanks, everyone. I hope you've had a good break and a good chat. If you could take your seats, we can get Russell and Rowan starting on their Dam Busters presentation. Okay, come on, let's take some seats. We're running a little bit behind schedule here as well. Hey. Oh, really? Here we go.
Hello. Can everybody please take their seats? We are going to do the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not turn my kids off.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you had a good break. I'd like to welcome Russell and Rowan from Dam Busters to run through their presentation for this evening, where they'll cover differing drainage systems and run through some compliant and non-compliant work that they've observed so far. Thanks, gents. Welcome. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this gets you through.
This gets me
Yeah,
through. Perfect. No worries. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Now, my name's Russell Kirkwood, and I am Director of Dam Buster, and I'm here tonight with Rowan Gregory, who's also a Director of Dam Buster and our Technical Manager. I'm also the Director of another company called Metropolis Solutions, which is a forensic plumbing company, which might have people going, what the hell's that? How can those two words be connected? We can't imagine. But I write reports for litigation on buildings all over Australia, primarily in Victoria, but I tend to travel around a fair bit these days. And I've been doing that since 2015 in my own business, which is Metropolis. And prior to that, I was working for the insurance industry from 2006 to 2015, plumbers warranty insurance in Victoria. It started out at, but I was working for all the major players all over Australia. So when they had, something terrible happen, I would be sent out there to try and work it out and deal with their panel lawyers. And in 2015, I started Metropolis, which is working against them. Basically, we write reports for litigation. So we have to be right. Otherwise, when people go off to court, they're on false information and it will soon unravel. So that's been a pretty interesting journey for myself. And it's led to a few developments, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So it's a pretty confronting title to say that everything is non-conforming, non-compliant, and not fit for purpose. However, it's pretty broadly correct in my understanding of what it looks like when you're actually out there looking at roofs. Why is this building flooding? So that's kind of a typical job that we might look at. In fact, that one just came in the other day in Melbourne. That roof is very, very poor. It's causing a lot of damage inside the building, and eventually the lawyers move in and they want people to come in and tell them how and why it's defective, and they're trying to pin some of this back on either the plumbers or the builders who constructed this building. So we get involved, and Rowan and I work together in this. He writes rectification scopes of works in relation to roof drainage, and we've been doing that for a long time. Now, if you haven't seen this publication, it's, as I say, it's really good reading, quite sobering though, and it came out in 2019, which is just prior to our current La Nina period. So when you're reading this, what you have to do is remember that the data they collected was during less than average rainfall events in Eastern Australia. But these guys have done a great job. They've looked at, particularly it's focusing in on multi-unit residential. Nicole Johnston from Deakin is someone that I know and have spoken to in regard to this research, and it's a really good research paper that looks at not just what's going on in these buildings, but also the ramifications for the people who live in them, the body corporates, and the dramas that go on in residential buildings. Now, in this research paper, it breaks down the defects into a whole range of areas. There's a lot of guff there I'm not going to bore you with tonight. Basically, what it says is that the majority of problems with multi-unit residential buildings, of which over 2 million people in Australia now live in these things, is water ingress. And it says that water comes from either the cladding or the roofing or waterproofing areas. Now, what I found really interesting is when she was interviewed regarding the paper, she clarified this situation, and I'll just draw your attention to this. It says that the defects relating to building fabric and cladding were the most prevalent, followed by fire protection, waterproofing, roof and rainwater disposal, then structural issues. Dr. Johnson said, it is important to note that of the defects coded to building fabric and cladding, 1/3 of those defects were the consequence of water penetration or moisture. So these cases are more likely a result of waterproofing or roof and rainwater defects, showing these two areas may be more greatly impacted than the headline numbers suggest. My analysis of the over 2,000 reports that I've produced myself since 2006 is that the majority of damage that happens to multi-unit residential buildings is actually through the box gutter systems and the flashings in and around those. The roof sheeting, whilst often putting at the wrong pitch or having problems, is rarely the cause of the problem, and it normally relates to water leakage, which is coming from the box gutters or flashings. The flashing stuff is usually nuisance. The box gutters is catastrophic when it goes wrong. Okay, so, and it goes wrong a lot of the time. So that is the analysis from someone who's done this, a lot more reports than she actually looked at. And so we sort of kind of know what the problem is, and we've been dealing with that problem on various levels for a long time. There they are, the demons that possess my world, okay? So when I get a new job comes in, I get up onto the roof there and we get access to the roof areas and we start looking at the realities up close and personal. And they're the kind of little things that we see. So they're a little bit small to focus in on, but you know, what we do see is the absolute abundance of flat metal deck roofs in domestic and commercial jobs. And what I'll say to you is that companies like Stramit, which we've had discussions with, tell us that their biggest growth area is flat metal deck roofs for domestic dwellings. So they're going, wow, we just keep pouring out these products, but they don't think about that those products, which are fine, drain into box gutters and rain heads, which they don't care about because they're made by flashing companies. So if you go to the Stramit Book of Answers, and I'm bagging these guys out a little bit at the moment, you'll find that there is no answers for box gutters. They don't have any answers in relation to box gutter design. They stay away from it. So it's a little bit of a dark mystery area. So what we're also seeing there is that these rain heads, which are at the end of most box gutters, whether it's a sump rain head or it can only really be a sump or a rain head, are the choke points on the buildings where we get problems. And even though you guys probably all know that AS 3500-3 always draws a rain head or a sump and the box gutter is one, of course, they're not made that way. And plumbers never seal them. Okay, here's my book. So you can see there, you could almost like, oh, when you're under that one up in the middle there, but that's what I see on just about every job. It's like, you know, it's like the crocodile hunter, basically. I go in there and I put my hand straight under the rain head and go, not sealed on the bottom. Some are the same thing. Often they're not sealed. So when they actually backflood, which they're meant to do, they flood the building. We pull off a rain head and what we find there is the entire thing's been cut out at the back. The overflows are higher than the points being cut out at the back. And so that's kind of what you see. So a building like that one down on the right-hand side, that's just a job waiting to happen for me. The one in the middle I love. I call that the vigilante. That's on a veterinary practice I drive by all the time, and I've watched that go from a very small hole to a ridiculous hole. Okay, so and the one right over on the left might look fairly harmless to you at this point here, but what you'll notice is 1, 2, 3, 4 rain heads, and there's also a couple more you can't see in image, all drain to that one down the bottom there. And lo and behold, that poor guy gets flooded every time there's a heavy rain in Melbourne. And his unit's flooding in a once in 1 year rain event rather than a once in 100 year rain event. So that's what I see. Now, I could talk about defects all night, and I'm very happy to chat on about them afterwards. But what I've got for you tonight is opportunity, because that's what this is. So what we're seeing there in the defects is the failure to regulate by various authorities in Australia, failure to educate, and a lot of poor practice and education for plumbers particularly, and also for consultants in that way. So this presents as an opportunity, and we saw this as an opportunity back in 2015. And so we developed a range of products which help people to be compliant and make things possible that weren't possible using Australian standards. So we're just going to have a little bit of a look at that tonight for you guys and see what you think. So the Dam Buster system, which is an off-the-shelf performance solution. So you guys have probably all heard about performance solution. I would only imagine that if you're going to change the pipe sizes on buildings, that it would actually be performance solution. And so we set about creating not a program for performance solution, which was already out there. We created products, which are off-the-shelf products based on flow rates per litre. We worked with a number of hydraulic professors, some of which you know, Terry Lukey, and also another guy called Robert Keller from Monash University, who is a bit of the godfather of hydraulics in Australia. He helped us out immensely, and we owe a lot to Bob. And we asked him some pretty simple questions that we couldn't find elsewhere, like why can't you change direction in a box gutter in Australia? And we kind of got to the bottom of why that is. And then we went, there's no point just telling people they could do it. Let's make a product that actually does it. And so you can specify it onto a job and then know that it actually gets purchased and put onto the project, which is what Dambuster is all about. There's been some recent changes. There's particularly a couple of things that happened in Victoria, which sort of have a flow-on effect for Australia, which is a HB 39, which is probably the only really decent flashing book in Australia, had this change made to it where they deleted figure 5.7.3. So if you look it up with Australian standards, you suddenly discover they deleted that in the middle of last year, which left just one rain head available for people to use in Australia. And if you're like me, you've probably never seen one of those in the wild. Most rain heads as you see out there were like the ones that I showed you earlier. They have a small hole in them and pretty poorly built, and very rarely do they have any sort of mass attached to them, even though some people may have done that early on, like consultants like yourselves. We created the Dambuster Rainhead, which is on the right-hand side, which is a performance solution product, and it's based on flow rate per litre. And that was the first device that we came up with and started the process of us working through how to try and resolve this. Now, this grew out of necessity, as all great inventions do. So basically, we needed to be able to fix buildings that we were defecting. So we built this stuff. There's a range of products now which are out there. They're all performance solution. There's enormous amounts of data built with Bob Keller and Terry Lukey in relation to this. And there are just three sort of versions there that sort of sum it up. You'll see the change of direction device down the bottom, which I've got a small version of that here tonight with me if you have a look at. The Dambuster Rainhead, which is here as well. And as you can see, it has an overflow through the base. Completely clean, makes architects very, very happy. Okay, so that's our products in practice. Now, if you can believe it, that was on a house which was leaking down on the Bellarine Peninsula in Victoria. That domestic dwelling had 16 changes of direction in the front face of the house. So we were able to redesign that. Rowan did a hydraulic plan for that, and roof plan, and combined it with a structural plan, which enabled us to rectify this pretty well unfixable house. People were very happy about that. You guys are probably thinking compliance, because everybody does when it comes to these products. We've taken that into account, and on our website, you'll find off-the-shelf performance solutions for each and every one of our products. There's a performance-based design brief, which you can download for free. And there are state-by-state variations for the final reports on our website and the technical downloads. So that means the performance solution side of this is free, okay? I remember that. The products, we do not want to become the greatest manufacturer of rainwood goods in the world. We think of nothing worse. And so we're in the business of licensing people to make our products across Australia. So at the moment, we're on a drive to get people to take on the licenses and go from there. Am I talking too close to this? No, it's good. I just was getting this bit of bird back. Sweet. So this is a little design example, which hopefully makes you guys tick. So there's a change of direction device, which would be pretty standard on most unit developments and industrial place, where inevitably the blocks of land are longer than they are wide. Therefore, when the building gets built, the box gutters end up on the sides, which makes it a really hard thing because no one ever wants to see the rain heads on the front of the building. So then they put them on the sides. Straight away, that's a free kick. For me, in Victoria, it's a free kick in front of goal. It's a penalty up here, right? So basically, that enables you guys to size it up. And as you can see, if you're bringing water in from two different directions, you just add up the flow rates, and that means you don't have to size the device. You just simply size the rain head. Every Dambuster rain head has been tested up to 16 litres a second, and therefore even the smallest one, which I've got here tonight, is testing overflow at 16 litres a second, What that means is a performance solution is you can use a smaller rain head than the flow rate because it's going to overflow at once in 100 year outside the house. So there's a lot of little tricks that can be done. It's all on our website and in amongst the bits and pieces. So there's a lot of clever stuff there. If you're familiar with AS 3500-3, you are familiar with this graph. This graph sucks, okay? The graph is made by mental crazy people. What? We've got rid of it because it just drove us nuts, okay? Rowan rang me one night and said, hey, I've worked this out. This is just, we don't need an app to do this. We can do it on a single sheet of paper as a table for normal people to read. And so what you've got there is a table. If you look to the left-hand side, litres per second, 3 to 16 litres, which is the Australian standard. Across the top, it's the width of your box gutter, and it gives you the minimum box gutter height at the high end. Now, dependent on the fall of the box gutter, you just add 5 millimeters, 7.5 millimeters, or 10 millimeters. Okay, so if you want 1/200, and you got it. So you can size upstream and downstream, which is not available in the calculators that I've seen. Okay, so and it's all done on a piece of paper. Question already? Yes, freeboard's been accounted. And by the way, the freeboard in the Australian standards is 30 mil. All our measurements of freeboard come up at 50 mil for the Australian standards. Yes, Rowan.
So I'd just like to point out that these graphs are only available for our devices. They don't, because our devices operate in free flow in the overflow condition as well. So they're not applicable to the sump side outlet or the high capacity sump in the code.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no worries. So all our measurements do. They're all the same as because when someone's using our device, it's a combination of performance solution and like DTS. So therefore, we needed a way for the plumbers to actually size the box cutters where we weren't responsible for it. But what it means for you guys is you can quickly check is a roof compliant or is it isn't, and you can size the system accordingly very simply. Okay, here's a design example, which is one of Roland's drawings. So this is the kind of stuff that we think that you guys could make a lot of money out of, particularly with the changes that are coming, particularly in New South Wales, where the free-for-all, which is being able to sell products into the non-compliant products into the market, is going to be closed down from what I can see in the next, let's say the next year. So they're going to do that by making people responsible in the chain, which will include you guys. So that's where we see huge opportunity for hydraulic consultants. And the thing is, what we're seeing in Melbourne is that building surveyors down there, certifiers up here, I think they call them, are asking for roof designs now more and more and more often. And therefore, we need people to do it. Rowan's flat out. All the people we have to do this are flat out doing it. And it's pretty simple when you've got products which are off-the-shelf performance solutions. Yeah, point something out, Rowan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that when I started working with Russell a number of years ago and was doing insurance work, we had building, tall roof drainage to rectify, and it was very difficult only using the code devices. But with the downbuster change of direction devices, it's made it so much easier to rectify these buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the kind of stuff that Rowan produces on a daily basis. We hope that people like yourselves could come in and produce for people the people you're already doing the hydraulics on buildings for. Thing is, these buildings all have roofs, and they're more and more complicated these days. So pretty simple drawings, really, in the scheme of it. And using our products, things you can actually build what people want to build, rather than telling them that you can't do this. You've got to straighten that box gutter. You've got to do that. We just say, hey, yeah, we can do it. It's just going to change direction. Then we have also been starting to work with truss manufacturers to look at trying to make some small changes to roof design on houses out there, where our products can be more easily used, and also the benefits for people here and I know you guys are interested in this because of the previous couple of speakers, is the cost savings for people. So suddenly they can reduce the amount of drainage that's on a building, they can reduce the amount of rain heads, which are unsightly things at the best of times, downpipes, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of savings for building design here. So that's pretty well where I'm sort of resting tonight. The thing is, you know, I've got a couple of products here. We would have liked to have brought more up, but you know, they're not the most user-friendly things to bring on the plane. But basically, you know, the rain heads just grow larger. We've also stretched these products. So because they're performance solution, we're able to make them wider as well. So you can use the DB300 stretches out to 450 mil wide, which can keep the rain heads kind of a reasonable size on buildings, which is a consideration for architects particularly, so that you don't end up with great monstrosities on the side of buildings. And the change of direction devices are 3 different step downs for sizing. So 50, 60 and 70, depending on the width of the box gutter. And just the last thing I'll show you, which is kind of cool. Because we've moved to performance solution, one of the other things the Australian standard says is you can't change the width of a box gutter based on, you have to go through the wall at the same size. Our products have built in slide. Because we're a performance solution, as long as you don't exceed the overflow, flow rate for the rain head downpipe combination, there's no reason. And this is the sort of stuff we worked on with Robert Keller, and we built rigs down in Melbourne, worked on this, and confirmed all of the findings. So more than happy to talk to you guys about that stuff, and hopefully, you know, have a look at our website and dig through that. You're the kind of people that will understand it better than anybody. And particularly the performance solution data, I think you'll find really interesting. There is also potential to take this beyond 16 litres a second, which we haven't done at this stage, but if you guys are interested in that, we could. So, yeah, I think that's probably left off. What's that?
How many people do roof design regularly?
Yeah, just a question from us. How many of you guys do roof drainage design at this point? Okay, so there's definitely interest in.
And how many are limited by the 16 litres?
Is 16 litres a second a big deal for you guys? So in Sydney, it is with 300 millimetres per hour type stuff.
It didn't used to be at all.
Yeah, right.
There's no problem with
Oh yeah, we know that. We know who that is. We had talked about it. But yeah, we haven't stepped outside of the 16 litres a second. When we find in Victoria we don't need to very often. But obviously all of the work that we did on this shows us that we could take this to 48 litres a second quite easily. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I just got a question. Greg, Canberra. I did a little job in Canberra because it was all these treasures in the building. We worked with Ashley back in the building, you know.
Yeah. We
had a Wayne 500-year design.
Yeah.
All the gutters and downpipes. But I'm thinking with all this climate change, rainfall intensities becoming more and more, do you think it might increase from 100 a year or?
No, I'll answer that straight off the bat. Is our reading of that is the absolute opposite. Okay, so in the 2021 standard that we're just using now, you'll find that most of the rainfall intensities for most of Australia are actually dropped. You know, because you can do suburb by suburb rainfall intensities now. So we find that, you know, where everyone used to just say Melbourne was 180 millimetres per hour, now we're looking suburb by suburb and going, it's 150 in this suburb here, right? So we've got more data. The data is fantastic, but yeah, we're not seeing that kind of thing.
No evidence.
It's not evidence-based. Yeah.
That was a really great presentation, actually. It seems like quite a watertight solution and a full product.
Excuse the pun.
We're incorporating that performance solution. Does anybody have any questions for the guys or any comments?
I agree. Thanks very much for coming up and talking to us. That's very interesting and looks like a fantastic product and a suite of products. You talked about the data you collected. Have you talked to standards about trying to bring the 0.3 version into line with some of this stuff?
Okay, so the 0.3 version hasn't really changed since 1998 because they still think, if you're reading that, they still think that it's just going on to commercial buildings with sawtooth roofs. But it's not, it's going on to every single residential build in Australia. It's contemporary design. People don't build buildings like that anymore. I can't help that. And one of the issues that people have with us is that we have 12 patents over our products, which why wouldn't we have? When we've invested, you know, an awful lot of time and money into this project. And so, yeah, it is an interesting question. The standards really missed the boat for trying to work in relation to this. But then the performance solution is there to try and meet where the standards are not changing quick enough for the trends. And therefore we embrace performance solution. And we just embraced it in a slightly different way where we went, there's no reason why this has to be expensive. Okay.
Yeah. Can I just mention something with regards to the performance solutions? But for a roof drainage design I do these days, it's only a little bit of paperwork. When I send out a quote to do a project, I'll just send out the performance-based design brief, and that's signed at the same time as the quote. And then when I provide the certificate at the end, I include the performance solution. So all those performance solutions are just on the website, and they're really, a performance solution, traditionally you think of that as you're doing something very specific for a project, but it's actually our way of just navigating the regulatory system. And so the performance solutions in our case are really just to allow the use of our innovative products. And it really doesn't, for you to start using those, it really adds very little time at all to the project. It's just a bit of paperwork.
And the value of the products is fairly reasonable. Like a 300 grain head, which is that's a 200 grain head, sells for $135 plus tax in Colourline.
The other part of my question, have you thought about talking to architects?
Yeah, no, they're definitely on our, they're the decision makers, and they warm to our products a lot. The problem we have is that our products get de-spec'd even if they're specified by hydraulic engineer. So I get projects coming to me all the time where they spec'd up Dambuster project, rain heads in it, and it's been value managed out. And then it floods and everybody's upset and we're like, tough luck, you know, like, so it's a problem of trying to regulate. What we're doing to address that is we've got at the moment it's in its infancy, but we're going to have stickers and stuff so that on here, barcodes, QR codes, dare I say, so that people can very easily check. All of our products carry Dambuster logos on them. So it's really easy for us to check against if somebody's actually using our product or not.
The reason I say that is because often we are driven by the architect and a vision, what this roof is going to look like and what that unit block is going to look like, and have the investors sort of make work. But back to step and educate them on problems that we're seeing even in those photos brought up.
Yeah,
this is why it's not.
He works for all the more architects.
Yeah, could I just in regards, what we're really trying to do is change an industry, and it's an enormous task because it's not, you know, it's engineers, it's architects, it's building surveyors, it's builders, it's roof plumbers. And one of the things that I've been trying to advocate for is in Victoria, a lot of things go wrong because the roof drainage is not documented at building permit stage. And so what happens is it's just not documented at all a lot of the time, and it gets to framing stage, and by that time it's just too late to come up with a compliant solution. And what really needs to happen is that building surveyors, and some are, but in general, building surveyors should be requesting detailed roof drainage designs. And with our products and also the code devices, they really now provide a lot of flexibility and make that they will assist architects a lot in their designs. But the key thing is that you've got to get it right on paper at the building permit stage, and it's just too late if you leave it to the roof plumber at framing stage. So, you know, in Victoria, in Victoria and Tasmania, roof drainage is a state addition to the PCA. So, you know, plumbers can do it at that late stage, but it's just the wrong time to do it.
I've got a quick question about your lovely little chart.
Oh, the chart, yeah.
Yeah, a simple little chart that replaces that monster. Yeah, your values, are they based on empirical evidence or are they theoretical?
That's one for you.
They're actually based on research information that I was able to obtain from the authors of the code.
Yeah, so we went back and looked at the source documents. The code was actually developed off back in 1998, 96, 98. Yeah, so it's all there. It's a big read. It's a very big read.
So that would be the old bench and Lockwood.
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. We got their papers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Final question.
Have you been successful in performance solutions in New South Wales yet?
We've sent a lot of products up here with performance solution and we've had certifiers accepted. So that's all we can really base it off. So, you know, it's a matter of getting it out there. Victoria has been VBA down there have been very testy in relation to this. When we first took it to market, we actually didn't do performance solution. We ran it as expert judgment under the NCC, deemed to satisfy by expert judgment, using Robert Keller as our expert. And that was considered unacceptable by the VBA for whatever reason. They never gave us a reason. They just decided they weren't going to accept it and forced us down the performance solution pathway. So that might give you an idea of, and my understanding is that also came back from the National Construction Code people in Canberra. But we didn't get any sort of decent explanation on that at all.
So, oh no, that's right. Sorry.
No, it's all right. We've probably had our time.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Big round of applause. That's very innovative.
Okay, so next up, Jason's going to come and talk about different soil classifications and Geotech's approach to installation of pipe work below ground. So welcome, Jason.
All right. Good evening, guys and ladies. Thank you for having me and inviting me down from Brisbane. Your time difference actually stuffed me up a little bit, so that's okay. Before I get started, I'll just mention I'm not a plumber. I've got no qualifications in hydraulic engineering. I'm purely here to talk about soils. So if you guys want to have a conversation about soils, raise your hand, jump up, talk to me about it. I like to think that I know what I'm doing. I am on the 3500 code committee, so don't shoot me. I'm purely there as a soil representative, so I'm not there as a plumber representative. If anything needs to be done in terms of plumbing, or if you have any questions about plumbing, I'm going to have to refer it to someone else because I'm just not that person. So I'm a geotech and I'm here to talk about soils. So what I wanted to talk about today, which I've been invited to talk, which I appreciate, is understanding soils and the interactions with plumbing. I've done this presentation in Queensland and Victoria many times. Generally, it takes me about an hour and a half. Emily's given me 20 minutes tonight, so I've had to cut it right back. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me afterwards, but we'll get there. This is the Queensland department. So this is what Queensland does. And I just wanted to mention this quickly because as soon as you lodge a approval in Queensland, you have to, this is form 1. So this is where things become difficult. So you have to tick one of those boxes. You have to submit it to whichever council it is, and you have to actually submit a soil report. Something that New South Wales is a little bit lacking, but so we actually, this is Queensland. So you actually have to tick one of those boxes. What is it? What is your soil class? Is it H1? Is it a P? Is it an E? And I'll get into that for people who don't really know what that is. And you also have to submit the soil report or the site classification when you go to submit your plumbing approvals. So this is again Queensland. So I'm not going to read it out for you. I can present this to you in simple terms. Basically, it says anything in New South Wales, you need to do this. So anyone that thinks that everything is just an M in New South Wales is dreaming themselves. Anything that's H1, H2, E or P, you need to start thinking about plumbing. I'm going to go into AS2870 because that's what I do. That's where I pretty much spend my life. AS2870 basically calls up class 1A or 10 buildings. And New South Wales, you don't need to submit an AS2870 classification because generally what happens is the builders just use the developers reports. In Queensland and Victoria, it needs to be site specific. So basically every site gets tested. So it's only New South Wales that we generally deal with a developer's report or developer's geotech report. So I just want to quickly talk about, because I know I'm short on time, so I just want to quickly point out some areas that New South Wales lacks in terms of source. So what we have is site classification or a soil classification. Most councils in New South Wales, and I can go on about this all night, most councils in New South Wales will go, we won't accept a class P, we won't accept this, we won't accept that. So it needs to be called a class M, H1 or H2 in order to get registration. Unfortunately, in terms of AS2870, that's not how it works. So you need to classify the site. So what we generally do is we'll go out, drill a hole. We'll classify the soil. So it's an M, H1, might be clay, might be rock, maybe shale, maybe fill, maybe whatever it may be. That's classifying the soil. Yeah. So we classify the soil. What is it? But then you need to put that soil into the perspective of what's happening on site. So you might have a class M soil, but you may, like this picture presents, you may have 30-metre gum trees on that site. So what does it do to the soil? The soil may be class M, but it doesn't mean that it's going to behave as a class M. Because what's going to happen in this picture is the owner's going to knock all those trees down. And those trees may be sucking moisture out of that ground for the last 50 years. What do you think is going to happen to those clays that's on that site? You know, it's all of a sudden it's been dry for the last 30 years. We knock all those trees down, and anyone that's done anything in terms of slabs or housing or anything like that, what do? We go put black plastic down, right? And we stick a slab on top. If you've ever gone in your backyard and threw a tarp down, even when it's not raining, you walk out the next morning, there's condensation under that tarp. It's pretty simple, right? Things change. We can knock all those trees down. It's not the same anymore. So maybe a class M, it may be, you know, unreactive source. Things have changed. Your reactivity's changed. So for most of you guys should know most of that. I won't get too much into it. So your M's, your H1s, your H2s, and E's is pretty much your scones, western, so your Goulburn, areas like that. Your H1s, H2s is pretty much your, if I'm looking at most jobs I'm doing now, it's pretty much like Marsden Park, stuff like that. Your M's is probably your Kellyvilles at the moment, somewhere in there. And then, of course, the dreaded Class P. I could talk about this all night, but I'm not going to go into it. This is where you start to run into problems. And what I really want to draw your attention to is sites which may be subject to moisture change, which is the fifth line. So what can cause moisture change? This is in the code. It's been there since 2011. Nothing's changed for 12 years. So this is Class B. Prior to construction, removal in the existing building, removal of trees, presence of trees, unusual moisture conditions caused by drains, channels, ponds, dams, swimming pools, effluent disposal areas, tanks. Mate, you could go on all day. So this is Class P. As soon as you've got one of those, you're Class P. Automatically. It's been in there since 1988 in the code. Now I know I'm talking to the guys that generally deal in 3500, and this is why I've been invited in. I'm not trying to scare you, but this stuff is what we're looking at here. Now we go to the next point. So Class P resulting from construction. So failure to provide adequate site drainage. How many sites do you guys rock up to and there's no temporary downpipes? Anything like that? Failure to detail construct drainage. I don't think I've ever seen a detailed drainage design from New South Wales. After construction, so this is for the homeowner. As soon as they plant a tree, that's it. Your site classification's gone. Failure to maintain site drainage, failure to repair plumbing, that's pretty standard, but I think you guys all understand that. I'll go to reporting because this is something that really pet peeves me because we just don't see that in New South Wales. And keep in mind, I do between 600 and 900 homes a month in Sydney, right? So I'm very familiar with what you guys do. So your YS is the most important thing. So that's your movement. That is your predicted movement on site. So I've just highlighted that there. Yeah, Class M, yep. But now we're going to go into what happens. So we've got a Class P because of the trees. So what happens in Sydney is that site wouldn't be developed unless it's not called Class B. So what happens from councils is they say, you can't call Class B, otherwise we won't register it. So what the developer does is they get the geotech in, they do the site classification, and always in the report it says it has not considered trees. It has not considered the effects of trees, and therefore we've called it H1 or M or whatever it may be. Well, we're not going to think about that, because otherwise Mr. Land Developer is not going to get registration. So all of a sudden the owner buys a block of land that he's been sold as a Class M or as a H1 or a H2, whatever it may be. And then I turn up and go, mate, you've got 30 metre gum trees on there. According to HCAA 70, that's Class B. And he goes, but that's not what I was sold. And it just goes round and round and round, but on the, all of a sudden I've become the bagger. So this is generally what we would do. So this is Class P. As you can see, recent removal of large trees prior to construction, growth of trees close to a footing. You know, you guys understand that's pretty simple. You know, I've done jobs literally where there's, I think it was at Kellyville, and there's literally a 30-metre gum tree in the middle of the site, literally in the middle of the site, and the geotech for the developer called it Class M. Because they need to do that to get approval. And yes, anyway, Class B, move on to the next one. Your HS, I won't get too into this because there's only probably about a dozen people in Australia who understand what HS is. But I'll move to the next screen just so you can sort of figure it out, because this is a plumbing thing. So basically your HS in terms of soils is your rainfall. So your summer, spring, August, you know, winter. The depth, so where the arrow ends there, is basically what we're saying is the depth that your seasons can affect soils. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if it doesn't, because I'm quite happy to answer questions. But so basically your HS is where your rainfall or your seasons, right, for your suburb, for your state, for your area, affects the moisture change in the soil. Yeah. So on the figure on the left, basically we're saying there's your HS unless you've got bedrock or a water table. So as soon as you've got bedrock, obviously your water's not going to affect that. Your rainfall's not going to affect that. So it goes down. But what's important, what is very important for you guys, so this is what the data we have in Queensland, where we have, so you can see closer to the coast, obviously, as you move inland, because it becomes drier, the depth of rainfall obviously affects a greater change. I'll move to this one because this is a really good example. So this is a Sydney job where we've taken a moisture profile on 4 corners of the house, right? So in Sydney, generally you guys work off about 1500 or 1800 HS. If you look at the surface level, right at the top, you can see the difference in moisture change from borehole 1, borehole 2, borehole 3, borehole 4. So think of 4 corners of the site, yeah? And then as you go down, you can see that it all starts to line up. the moisture starting as it goes down. So we drilled down to 5 meters and it's all pretty much, after about 3 meters, it's fine. But what I'm trying to get to is, if I just bring this one back up, your plumbing is wet. 300, 400, 500, 600 mil. So on that triangle, where's all the movement? So if we go back here, where's all the movement? It's in the top half meter. Below that, there's nothing. So this is where the plumbing becomes really important. Really important in terms of designing flexible joints, expansion, everything like that, because that's where all your movement is up the top. Below that, oh, guys, if you want to put your plumbing in 2 meters deep, I've got no problem. It's not going to move, right? But all your movement due to seasonal variations in terms of soils is there, or in terms of homeowner watering the garden on one side, not watering on the other side. That's where all your movement is, in that top meter. And I can design a slab that can deal with that, no problems at all. But PVC can't help you, right? And this is where I know they tried to get it in the 3500, and it's in Appendix G. Thank you, Chris. Appendix G. This is where all this stuff sort of is going, is leading. Keep in mind, this has been in AS2870 since 2011. So any site that's been called H1, H2, E or P, and it's not in the informative section, it's in the normative section of AS2870, has called up flexible joints since 2011. Victoria and Queensland, we've been doing this for 10 years, literally 10 years. So I suggest anyone that wants to come over and argue with me about this, by all means, but it's been in the code. It's been an AS2870, and everyone says, oh, but 3500 in the new code's not in the NCC yet. Don't care. AS2870 has been in the NCC for 10 plus years. And they say, oh, but AS2870 isn't referenced in 3500. Listen, we can all argue about it, but if I'm standing in front of a judge, he's going to go, but you knew that. It's in your code. It's in the code. Why didn't you do it? And this is pretty much the meetings that I've had today. And guys, I'm not trying to bully anyone here. I'm not a plumber. I don't sell plumbing equipment. I don't do any of that. But I literally said to the guys, and the guys that I was with today were 2 of the biggest builders in New South Wales, and I said to them, you really need to make a change now. It's too late. You really need to start moving towards, and the funniest thing is Queensland and Victoria, of which these companies they're the same builder. I've been doing this for 10 years. In New South Wales, they're like, oh, what do you mean flexible joints? I'm like, talk to your counterparts. So this is what I deal with. This sort of stuff where the plumber comes in, digs a big hole, fills it full of gravel on clay soils. Can anyone guess what's going to happen here when it rains? When it gets water in there? This is pretty much day to day. So you can't even see the bottom beam there on the trench mesh because the drainage is always just terrible. Yeah, I'll get right that one because I'll move on because I know I'm running out of time. Annual repose, you guys already know about that stuff. Yeah, so this is AS2870, which has been around since 2011. So I just want you guys to look at that and tell me what you think that implies, or question me what you think it implies. That's been around since 2011. And that is actually part of the NCC. So I don't care whether it's referenced in 3500 or not. It's in the AS2870 is in the NCC. So and keep in mind, Victoria and Queensland have been doing this for 10 plus years. So am I boring you yet? I just wanted to bring this up because I know you guys down here, and I was probably one of the first to find out about a certain suburb in Sydney that's having problems with fill. I don't really want to mention it, but it may be a JS or a suburb called JS or somewhere around there, if that makes sense. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything. But I just wanted to bring up the problems around the suburbs that you guys are having at the moment around fill, and because I know a lot of you guys talk about stable, unstable, but you don't talk about reactivity or anything like that, right? So they're two separate scenarios. So you got reactivity, which is your reactive clays, your H1s, H2s, Es, which is what AS2870 deals with. But you guys pretty much deal in the 3500 realm, which talks about stable, unstable. That's it, right? So basically uncontrolled fill or water charge source, right? That's where you guys deal. So I just want to talk about this site, which is very familiar to a certain springs scenario that you guys are dealing with, right? So if we look at these contours, they're not contours. They are depths of fill. So does anyone see anything that's surprising here? So we're talking 17.5, and that I can see a 15.5, I can see a 14. They're depths of fill. That is a state fill from the developer, which is the same developer that you guys are dealing with down here. Yes, sir. And why do we build on these sites?
Is it good fill though?
I'll get to that. Before we start, general consensus through everyone. So every geotechnical engineer in Australia will go 1% of depth is consolidation. 1%. If it's good quality fill like you asked. So what's 16.5 meters on 1%? It's 165 mil, 160 mil. How's your plumbing dealing with that? And that's what I'm trying to get to. We can design this from an engineering point of view so the house doesn't fail, right? We can do it, but it's everything else that adds up. So your driveway slabs, you know, your pathways, everything like that. And this is what's happening out at.
How do you do that? You put like 20 meter piers down?
Well, there's a homeowner out in the middle of your, sorry. There's a homeowner who wants to spend 80K on piling. And that's where, you know, that's what we've got to judge. But what I'm trying to get to is this is from a plumbing point of view, is how do we deal with this? So I've done, and the young blokes in my office, they couldn't understand this map, right? So I said, oh, I'll go back to first principles where I learned when I was at uni, and I'll draw it for you. So that's where it is. So I draw it off contour. So you're looking at 17 meters in the middle. One side is what's that? I can't see from here, about 10. What does that look like to you? And what's the problems out in that estate that I didn't mention, but I did, sorry. What's the problem out there? You cannot put fill in an area where water runs. Because guess what? Water's water. It'll go where it wants to. And we cannot put fill into a gully, right? And go, oh, water's just going to stop going there. Does not happen. Water is a funny beast. Right? And you guys know this more than I do. But it will go where it wants to go. This is 17 meters, 18 meters. I can't see it, but 18 meters of fill. Now, this is the last bit of my presentation. Let's go stick a house on it. And this is what's happening. So this is what we're dealing with. Let's go stick a house on it. What do you think is going to happen? So 1% consolidation of the depth of fill. Let's go stick some plumbing pipes in there. Oh, chill drains. First day you put it in there. But hang on a second. All of a sudden the fill's now loaded. Oh, hang on a second. She's starting to get a bit flat. And this is my running joke with a lot of builders I have, and because I've been to a few sites where literally the bathroom tub was on the wrong end of that. Right? So all of a sudden, every time they pulled the plug out of the bathtub, it didn't drain. What do? We pile it. But again, like you said, does a homeowner want to pay for that? No, they don't want to pay for that. But at the same time, we can pile it, but what do we do with the plumbing? This is what's important, because that's livability, you know. It's amenity. So if you can't create amenity, what's the point of having a house? So that's, I didn't want to put in some stuff that I know about certain suburb, but so I use a Queensland-based one. But anyway, you guys all know about this, which is probably creating new ends. I was out at a big builder this morning, and yeah, they're starting to freak out about this stuff. So I suggest if you guys want to have a chat, talk to Chris out the back. I'm not a plumber. In terms of requirements, stuff like that. So this is basically, I've got 12 houses all in a row. Down here where it's all popped, and reason being the plumber actually did his best. He actually surprisingly did his best. But because he couldn't get full, so see the back jump up where it's on a 45, he put the expansion there because he couldn't get the expansion on the jump up. So basically, yeah, I can't fault him because he actually did. He was trying his best, but that's what happened based off all these bathrooms were based off the back of the house, and he only had about 300 trench to deal with to get. So he couldn't get the expander in. So he put it on the 45. I mean, I couldn't fault him. He did the right thing. He tried. And that's all I've been telling my builders is, if you can show that you're actually trying, this isn't an issue. But yeah, 12 houses all in a row. And that's what we're dealing with. All just as soon as the clay got wet through all the rain, man, straight up. So.
Something on that. So is that push drainage up?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's swell from the rain. So,
In the shower.
yep, on the back section of the house. So, and most of the time that's in a cut. So the back section generally these days is on a cut section. So they cut down and they just don't have the fall. So all that rainfall came through and just popped. As soon as the clay swelled, sorry, as soon as the clay swelled, it just popped everything. So is that? Yeah. Anyone else? Otherwise, you can come chat to me anytime. I'm sure you probably want to get to dessert. So.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
At any stage, that scenario had with the fill, would it ever settle? Would it 5 years, 10 years enough?
From a geotechnical point of view, right? And this is where my knowledge comes from. Soon as you load it, that's it. It's going to go. So it's exponential. So as soon as you put a house on there, it's going to settle fast, right? And then it'll slow. If you get rainfall, which happened out at my mate's house, I got a phone call. Literally, the second story brickwork wasn't even up, and they called me. This was 7 years ago. They called me saying, "Jason, you need to get down here right now." And there was Sydney had 200 and something mil over a weekend, and it went. So this entire house didn't even have a roof on it yet. 140 mil.
So differential settlement.
Differential settlement is your problem. Yeah, we generally from a geotechnical point of view, if you've got 5 meters of fill on one end, 5 meters on the other end, everything goes the same. Other than your driveways and everything like that, but yes, you are correct. Differential settlement is your problem. So as soon as you got rotation, that's it. You got problems. We can design for it. But it's not logical for homeowners and maintenance officers and everything like that dealing with all the problems they have to deal with. So,
quick question about on a lot of commercial projects, in particular, we get compaction reports which say things like, yes, we've got 100% compaction, or even sometimes more than 100%, which always astounds me. But I'm a simple soul.
yeah, as soon as you over compact, if you got 102 or 101 on your compaction reports, send it back.
Okay. What relevance then is a compaction report to what you've been saying tonight, particularly with respect to that fill situation?
Nothing.
Has that got
Nothing.
Was that compacted, that fill, that 17 meters of fill?
Yes, it was, and it means nothing.
Right, so all this stuff about compacting.
It's illegal. If you were relying on it, right? You've got a legal document to go, Mr. Lawyer, I've got this document and I've cited this document and I've relied on this document. In terms of reliance on the compaction, as you're asking, means nothing to me.
So what do we do?
You're a professional, right?
Oh, I don't know.
You're a professional. What would your insurer ask you to do? make sure you've got your documentation, make sure you've got your everything in order, right? That's all you can do. If anyone that says that I've got 101 or 100 or even 95 or 97% compaction, I guarantee you after it rains, if I went back there the next day, it's worthless, right? Absolutely worthless. So compaction reports are only there for basically the councils, so they get their documentation, right? For you as a professional to get your documentation. Other than that, never, ever, ever go back and retest fill. Right? Ever. Don't.
Okay, if we get away from the litigation side, it seems a bit of that discussed tonight. What about in practical terms? What do we do? If we're putting in drainage, plumbing contractors putting drainage in on a site with compaction reports and whatever, is there a practical solution that you can point to, or do we just articulate drainage?
What I'm dealing with fair trading at the moment is that they're constantly going on about this supporting the barrel of the pipe, right? Unstable, stable. Supporting the barrel of the pipe. It's a PVC pipe. It's 600 mil deep. It's got 500 mil dirt on top of it. We just went and put a house on top. Don't worry about your PVC pipe because I've done the numbers and it requires literally about 8.7 or 9 kPa in terms of under the barrel, right? If you can walk on the side, you've got over 80 kPa. So we're getting confused with this whole supporting the plumbing barrel, and we're not understanding the flexible stuff. So what I was trying to say today was about reactivity. So we're getting those different movements, yeah? So it's not about the fill, which fair trading is always pushing about this unstable, stable soil. It's not about that. What needs to happen is we need to worry about this flexible connection. As soon as you go through the slab, we need something there, because if it's a H1 or H2 soil, right, all of a sudden your slab's going at a different rate than your plumbing is. And it's a PVC pipe. What's going to happen to that PVC pipe? And that's what I was trying to portray is AS2870 has called up flexible joints since 2011. And no one in New South Wales just seems it doesn't exist. So, hey. Yeah, don't talk to me about that.
This is something you probably know anyway from dealing with fair trading, but I received a call probably 6 weeks ago from a plumber out near Jordan Springs who was defected by fair trading.
I didn't say it, you said it.
And yeah, he was defected for putting in flexible joints because they class it as a performance solution. So just for the members out there who haven't seen it, fair trading put one of their guidance notes out a couple of months ago. I didn't actually.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I said
it's confusing as hell.
If you're in Queensland and Victoria, you have to put the flexible joints in, but in New South Wales, it's still regarded as a performance solution, which is on our website that you can download and use. But if you do specify one on a job, fair trading, if they rock up, I don't know if it's consistent across all inspectors, but certainly the plumber I spoke to
it's not. Yeah.
was told to either remove it or put in a performance solution. So
correct.
Just be aware if you're going to specify them that you'll need to, download them. Yeah, that's right. The plumber does it, but they may ask for.
They'll ask for a performance solution. Yeah,
which
100%. Yeah, you're right. Because that's what I'm getting at the moment. So basically, what I've heard is FT can't inspect every site, right? So they're picking and choosing which sites they're going to, and so for a particular builder of mine, which does a lot of work in New South Wales, they literally call me once a month saying we need a PBS. And it's one job because fair training's rocked up. So it's complicated because, you know, in Queensland, we have to submit plumbing approvals, and Victoria, submit plumbing approvals prior. So you need the design before you go to site.
What is that?
I'm more than happy to share it with you. It's about 14 pages. It's good not right. It's good not like reading if you need something to read tonight.
We've got two questions from online. One's from Dean, and once again in relation to fair trading, but I think that one's just been addressed. The other's from Ryan, which says, where there's commercial projects, and given that AS 2870 applies to residential slabs, where would one draw guidance for in the world of commercial buildings or non-residential buildings?
That's where it gets into the realm of an actual hydraulic consultant,
Sure.
basically.
Okay.
Well, either a hydraulic or civil consultant. So AS 2870 only deals with obviously class 1 or 10 buildings.
Sure, yeah.
As soon as you start to get into those light commercials, 2 stories, basements, anything like that, you really need a hydraulic consultant to communicate with. And that's where you guys obviously come in terms of how you design for it and what you need. So.
And then 2 other questions. In relation to the movement, how do you determine the maximum or minimum amount of movement that reactive soil is going to cause? And is that pipeline dependent in length?
So soils obviously we do a lab test that calculates your YS, whether that's in the M range or the H1 or H2 range. As soon as you add in extra factors, that can double. And a good soil report should be able to tell you how to design for that, or what's your design movement. So generally in our reports that we do, we will say, yes, it's an M class soil, but we need you to design for a H1 in terms of movement. Sure. I've been talking to Chris recently about there's also too, when you put in these joints, where do you set them? You know, do you set the expander at full expansion? Do you set it at full shrinkage?
Yeah.
And that's where which Chris has produced a document, which I'm proud of. It really comes down to the point where you're building. At the moment, it's so wet. What do you think is going to happen? Everything's going to dry out. It's everything, the ground is saturated, so everything's going to dry out. So where do we set the expansion? But I don't know when the builders or the builder is going to construct that house. So we're trying to set up something to give them some guidance in terms of how they maneuver around that, because the plumber's just going to turn up and he's going to have the joint, stick it in, so I'll put it in. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So it's important that we get that right in terms of that balance. So.
And then what sort of opportunity would there be, obviously putting cost aside, to actually tie the pipework into the structured slab itself, so that I guess everything under the slab would move together, and then you just have your flexible joint. Like one of the photos there, you had casted pipework into a fairly large beam.
One is fair trading won't accept.
Yeah, sure.
Straps.
Yeah.
At all. They don't want anything to do with it. 2 is I've never seen a slab in my life, and my father's a concreter, so I grew up on concrete slabs. I've never seen a slab where the straps have actually been installed.
Sure. Okay.
Because the plumber does a great job. He comes in, sticks the straps out of the ground, all good leave side, concrete turns up. What do you think the first thing the concrete does is, how am I supposed to put my black plastic down? How am I supposed to get my grade? Bang, kicks them over, they all bend over, that's it, you never see them again. I've never ever seen a slab with trapping being done properly other than a commercial building. So residential, forget it, yeah. And it's not the plumber's fault at all.
This is a random question, but do you think waffle pod slabs are more prone to moisture than a standard concrete slab?
You just asked the son of a concreter. An Italian concreter. Probably not the best question to ask, but no, waffle pods more prone, yeah. 100%. 100%, because you can't protect your edge beam, because we know what owners do. It's not the builders, it's not the plumbers, it's literally the owner turns up and goes, oh, beautiful house, with the hose. And then you've got no protection at all. Whereas the old...
Is that written anywhere? Is that...
No. I could probably find you some papers to prove that. But yeah, no, it's literally the old days. We had the what they used to call the rat wall. So the edge beam used to be 400, 500, 600 mil deep around the perimeter, and it stopped moisture coming in underneath. Now, because we're sitting on top, and then we grade the soil, and on small blocks of land that you guys are dealing with, there's nowhere for the water to go. So.
Sorry, I was just a bit intrigued by what you're saying about the straps. I had a job recently where fair trading said just the plumber put them in, fair trading said cut them off.
Yeah.
Don't want them.
No, fair trading won't accept straps. You know,
it was completely in sand, right in the beach.
Okay, yep.
From a geotech point of view, is sand a reactive medium?
That was a good question, because that's the entire reason why I'm on the 3500 code committee. Because I was in front of, Chris might be able to correct me, the Attorney General, was it, in Queensland? And they bring out all this stuff in Queensland. And I said, mate, what, sand's non-reactive, right? I said, and I think my point was, you go to the beach, you can stick an umbrella as far down as you want, right? Or you go sit on your esky, doesn't go anywhere, right? It's non-reactive, so it doesn't need plumbing connections. It doesn't need it's not going anywhere. And I think about 2 days later, I got a phone call saying, do you want to be a part of the code committee? Because of that exact same question. So sand, so no.
And the theory being the water can freely move through.
Oh, there's nothing. Sand's not gonna.
It's just not moving.
Sand's not moving up and down. Right. The only problem with sand is if you in Sydney, you guys like to say botany, for example, where you may have your neighbour who digs a basement, and then the water table drops, and that's where you get your settlement through consolidation. But if everything's equal, it's not going anywhere.
Well, thank you very much.
That's right.
I just it's a bit of a double barrel presentation with Jason, and I'd like to thank you for coming down from Queensland. But we are going to back this up, hopefully with Plastic, our next meeting, to sort of back end this and say, all right, well, when you do have that movement, here's how you deal with it.
Yeah, I suggest everyone goes talks to Chris, because as I said, I'm not a plumber, so Chris is more versed than me in terms of dealing with what connections you need or what you don't need. So,
thanks for the presentation. I have a question.
Yep.
So, if the building experiences an uneven segment, movement, and we put the flexible drawing in the pipework, so my understanding is that the pipework, so flexible drawing only able to ensure the pipework is not ruptured, but because of the movement, the pipework up and set down cannot maintain like a a certain floor. For example, 100 mil pipe, we have to have 1 in 64, but the pipe will not in that floor. So it still doesn't work. Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. But I think what you're saying is you might create negative fall in certain aspects, and you're 100% right. But the problem is, as soon as I'd prefer negative fall than I would a cracked pipe, especially in fill or unstable source, because as soon as you put water in that, it's going to multiply 10 times. So yes, I agree with you. It's still going to create negative fall, but there's only so much a plumber can do, because often on sites now they're so flat, they've got no grade to get to their jump ups or whatever they need to do. All they can do is ensure that obviously put it in, but you're 100% right. Eventually, you're going to create negative fall, and it's the same with if I go back to AS2870 about pathways. So the pathways on the perimeter of residential slabs, they're supposed to fall 1 in 40. But if you're on a Class E site, they literally go like that. And we can go to a point where I'm not sure how you deal with those grades.
Jason, just on that, to help answer that question, if we're dealing with a clay site with the negative fall, you may experience that because these fittings allow the drain to move up and down. And what you'll find is from season to season, we go from summer with heaps of rain where the clay site swells and maybe pushes up, and you may have low points within that drain, but it always moves. So you go to then a winter where it gets drier and starts to shrink, and then you go back to what was your normal fall. The problem we're going to have now, particularly with the last 12 months of so much rain, and we put all these slabs and these new homes in saturated ground, is that the ground is already swollen and it's only going to go one way. So that's where we're going to, I think, have a lot of problems within the next 2 years based on the amount of rain that we've had. We experienced the same thing back in 2010 and 11, where we had a similar effect to what we've got now, stacks of rain, and we saw a few class actions on the back of that because so much construction and slabs were getting built around that time, which, they ended up heaving and breaking their backs. So though you might lose temporary fall, it is often only temporary because clay moves all the time, if that helps answer that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's a very good point. When we had the rain in 2010, it was the opposite. So we were in drought. And I just know how many houses I've dealt with legality-wise because of the opposite effect. So, yeah, 100% right, mate.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. That's very informative. We might jump on to wrap of the year quickly.
Okay, hold on. Okay. So I know everybody is like, it's past 9. So we're going to do Rep of the Year for 2022. So usually we just give one winner away and it's whoever people have voted for. But this year we asked people to vote for their first, their second, and their third. So first of all, thank you everybody for voting when you registered for tonight. I'm kind of excited because we've got we're doing a first, we're doing a second, and we're doing a third. And in third place, we've literally got 3 people tied, which is awesome because you normally just say a thank you to one person. So we need a drum roll. Okay, the first person in third place is
Matt Lloyd.
Matt Lloyd. And then I think get your certificate, please. Nick, hey Nick, can you take something? Okay, thanks.
Congrats, Matt. Hang up for the other 2 to come up.
And another third place winner is
Kate.
Kate Jennings. And we've got one more in third place, and that is
Stephen.
Stephen Maiden. Come on up.
Check that name.
I know,
It worked well.
Awesome. Yeah, Nick, sorry, Kate's hands are busy now. Like that way. Awesome.
Congratulations, guys.
I don't even know which slide we're on. Everyone's a winner? What are we up to? Oh, sorry. Second place is
Do you want to let this one go?
Josh Elliott.
Congrats, Josh. Congratulations, mate. Well,
Yeah, Kate's there for a smile.
All right, okay.
Alrighty. And then we have one winner, and he's not here to accept it. He was going to be here to accept it, and even his colleagues not either. But the winner is Steve from Zip. So he doesn't tell me he will get that to him. So we'll just clap for him and pretend he's here. Alrighty, awesome. I'm going to take the handheld mic. We do have some other prizes from some of our other affiliates. So I will go through those. I'm going to pick on a few people to pick a number between 1 and 85, I think it is. I'll tell you in a second. And yeah, and then we will give some prizes away. Alrighty, give me a sec. Okay.
We should extend one to our online people.
Yes. They could be involved in the let's just tell them they're in that. Can you tell the online people that they're in the next draw?
Online people, you're in the next draw, so be ready.
So, Matt Lloyd has with him here a soft esky with complimentary German beers. Matt, I'm going to get you to pick a number between 1 and 90.
But don't yell it out.
But
Sorry, it doesn't work.
Pick a number. Okay, 44 is. Oh, he's not here. Hang on. Pick another number. 56. That's Nick Snowden. Woo! Alrighty, we have a goodie bag here from ACO. So Kate, you can shout it out loud, that's fine. Shawmel, come on up. All right, from Studer from Grant. What's Grant? Oh my God. Come on up for me and you can hand them out. And I'm going to get you to pick 3 numbers. So we have 3 $50 Wish gift vouchers. That's why you've got to whisper it to me. Between 1 and 90. So let me have a number, please. Trent Tanner, where are you, Trent? Come on up. Give me another number. Is Brett Ryan here? Yes, Brett Ryan, where are you? He was. Oh, you know what? I think we keep him in there anyway, and I'll get it to him. Okay, because he was here, so he did turn up. Okay, give me another number. Michael Armitage, I know you're here. Come on up, Michael. Oh. Thank you for turning up. All right, what else do we have? We've got Stephen, can you come up, please? We've got some goodie bags from Stephen Reading as well. We've got 3 of them to give away. So I'm going to tell you to whisper me 3 numbers, please. That haven't been picked. Oh, that's been picked. Dean Crow, are you still here? Oh, really? Okay, that's nice. Thanks. Another number. 14. 48. Mark Aubrey. Come on up. Awesome. Give me the number. 21. David Wood. Where's David gone? He's gone. He's here. Oh, perfect timing, David. You need 3 hands. And one more. Tom Wise. Good on. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Stephen. And then, is Alan here from Galvin? Is Alan still here? Come on over for me. We've got a bottle of wine from Galvin. Come and tell me a number, please, between 1 and 90. Oh. You're already on the block here. Sorry. Oh, hang on, it's online. Hang on. Got it online. Hold on. Scott Johnson should be online. If you are Scott, can you unmute yourself for me? He's online. So we will give it to him. I will make sure we get it to him. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. For everybody who did contribute with Christ, thank you so much. For everyone who didn't, please don't feel bad because I literally emailed you guys this morning. It may have even been this afternoon. So no, thank you so much. And thank you everybody else for turning up.
Thanks everybody for a great night. Sorry, I was a bit rusty to start with. That I didn't put together, but thanks to Paul for popping that together, and I hope you have a good end of the year. Thank you.